Walking out of Studio 6, Eric returns to the set of Adele's Life. At this time, he had already obtained Charlize Theron's personal phone number and persuaded the other party to hurry up and open a Facebook account. Memorize the phone number silently and memorize it a few times. Eric then tore up the note and threw it away, making it seem unprofessional not to do so. And it was discovered by the Olsen sisters, Godot and Nico, and it must have been another wave of interrogation. The figure of Theron comes to mind, not the figure of the female devil, but her sexy performance in Furious, Snow White, Smoke in Paris, and Dior commercials. As a dancer and model, she has been in the Hollywood industry for 8 years, and her beauty has spread all over the world. But don't think that a goddess has always been a goddess. In fact, Charlize Theron's childhood was not good. When she was a student, she was slightly chubby, wore thick lenses because of myopia, and her teeth were ruined by antibiotics. Theron used to be introverted, had low self-esteem, was out of place with others, ran into walls at school, and didn't have many friends. To make matters worse, his father has an alcoholic habit and loves domestic violence. Theron and Mom. At the age of 15, Theron's father became drunk again and machine-gunned indiscriminately, threatening to kill his daughter. In order to protect her daughter, Theron's mother shoots her husband, and Theron witnesses the whole process. Fortunately, in the end, the court ruled on justifiable defense, and the mother and daughter were safe. These experiences have fostered Theron's independent, resilient character. It wasn't until later, when her body began to develop, that Theron was also freed from her illness, and she finally exercised herself in the direction of the Queen. Since stealing the day, the Queen's aura on her body has begun to be highlighted. With a height of 177 centimeters, a perfect face in ancient Greece, a slender neck, a perfect back, and long legs against the sky, when Theron grew up, God was amazed that he could make man so perfect. Eric also has to admit that Charlize Theron is the most beautiful and sassy of all the women he has ever seen. In terms of beauty, Nico and her have their own characteristics. But when it comes to temperament, Theron is superior. And Theron was born in 1975, 28 years old this year, a full 8 years younger than Nico, and it is needless to say what age means to a woman. But it's a pity that now Theron has a boyfriend, a little star Stuart Townsend. This guy doesn't have many works, and the few works are not outstanding, and the most eye-catching label on his body is the little boyfriend of the sexy goddess Charlize Theron. Compared with Theron's career, it is obvious that women are strong and men are weak, and they are somewhat suspected of being the tiger of the serious crime team. And this kid has a short temper and a tendency to domestic violence, but it hasn't been revealed yet. Eric remembers that in 2022, Stuart Townsend was arrested for domestic violence against his wife. For Theron, her father's domestic violence left an indelible shadow on her, and it would be bad luck to have such a boyfriend. As a messenger of justice, Eric feels the need to appear like Superman to save her from fire and water. It doesn't matter if he burns this fire now, since it will burn in the future. Wouldn't it be better for me to extinguish him in advance? That's right, that's how it should be. Gotta find a way to kick this kid out of Stuart. You deserve a good woman like Theron. However, this matter is not urgent, and it needs to be slowly figured out, so as not to steal chickens and rice. The best thing to do is for Stuart Townsend himself to reveal his bad character, and Eric takes the opportunity to wield a hoe. As long as the hoe dances well, there is no corner that cannot be dug down. With that in mind, Eric returned to Studio 4. Seeing him come back, Ashley handed over a peeled orange. "Eric, what are you doing?" Eric didn't hide it. "I went to visit the class, and The Witch is being filmed in Studio 6 next to it. I'll go and see the progress." "I know this movie, a crime film starring Charlize Theron, right?" "Yes. The director was my partner assistant director when I was filming Transformers, and I picked it up single-handedly." Eric didn't answer Theron at all. He knew very well what the little girl was thinking, and this kind of cliché was a little tender. As he spoke, he looked at Neil Blomkamp. Neil, Piety is filming in Studio 6. I have time to go over and have a look. Really? Did she start filming that movie? Asked Neil Blomkamp, who hurried over to him. Well, filming just started recently, and I invested $8 million. OMG. So much, director. When will I be able to direct independently? It doesn't matter if I have less money. Eric sneered. Have you forgotten what I said last time? When the filming of Adele's life is finished, I will start filming a political thriller, and I will come over as an assistant. The next work depends on the situation. If it is appropriate, let you try the assistant director first, and then consider the possibility of independent directing. Neil Blomkamp clenched his fists. No problem, your filming speed is fast anyway. Eric glared at him. It's not a matter of how fast or slow I make a film, it's a matter of your learning efficiency, work hard in private, and strive to get the director's microphone next year. Of course, I'll try. Neil, what type of film do you want to make if you're a director? Asked Mary curiously. Sci-fi films. I think sci-fi movies are the most imaginative. You can shoot aliens, you can shoot robots, you can shoot superpowers. In short, it's very cool. Neil replied without thinking. Eric is secretly funny. His taste is always the same, and the two most famous works he made in the future, District 9 is an alien and Super Chop-Eye is a robot. Sci-fi films, this is not easy to make, and the cost of sci-fi films is too high. Mary shook her head slightly. Everyone knows that even if Eric brought it out, MGM would not be able to make a huge investment in a science fiction film for a newcomer. Looking at the time, Eric finished eating the oranges. Okay, now is not the time to discuss science fiction films, and science fiction films don't necessarily require big investment. We can start with a small cost. We just need to change the perspective of looking at the problem. Nothing is impossible. Right now, MGM has a very unique sci-fi film in its script library, and if you reach the level, I can shoot it for you next year. Really? Asked Neil Blomkamp, surprised. Have I ever lied to someone? Director, what is the book? What's the name? Can I take a look? Yes, the name of the movie is Super Out of Control. Let Judy find it out for you another day. Super Runaway. The name sounds great. Time flies quickly. 10 days have passed in a blink of an eye, and today is June 12th. The smoke continued on the big screen, and Finding Nemo continued to dominate, with Nemo the Clownfish taking $65 million at the box office in its first week. Although this data is already very strong, there is still a gap of tens of millions compared with top blockbusters such as The Matrix 2, Spider-Man, and The Lord of the Rings. But the scary thing about cartoons is that they are suitable for all ages, and they are a big family. And Finding Nemo has also received praise from critics, as well as IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. Even the sales of clownfish in the pet market have been on fire. So the second week is coming to an end, but its downward trend is only 34%, far lower than the average blockbuster of about 45%, which is terrible. Human Eradication grossed $27 million in its second week in North America and $11 million so far in its third week, both within acceptable range. The global box office has also increased by nearly $10 million, with the total overseas box office reaching $18 million, and the global cumulative box office is currently $101 million, just exceeding $100 million. Compared with the cost, there is no doubt that AK Film and Television has successfully played a small game again and has created a cash cow that can achieve sustainable results. Director Anthony Ferrante has now become a favorite in the eyes of many companies. A few days ago, Pema came to report on the work and talked about the problem of Anthony Ferrante. Boss, Anthony is a hot director right now, especially after the success of Human Eradication Project. He has received offers from Lionsgate, Warner, and Paramount, and he is really a big hit. Eric smiled. And then? Did he say yes? I have an idea. He came to talk to me. He wants to improve the salary. In the second half of Sharknado 2, he hopes to get the same share as Ryan Reynolds and increase the fixed remuneration to $1 million. Ha 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 ha. Hearing this request, Eric grinned. It's normal to have ideas. After all, the film was directed by him, but he just can't recognize his own contribution. The key to the success of these two films is the script and the creativity, not the director, and even if it were replaced by anyone with the microphone, the result would not be bad. Pema Hadi nodded. That's right, I don't know how to make movies to see the truth, but Anthony seems to be lost in the hype and the box office. My opinion on his request is that it can be partially accepted, and the fixed salary will be increased to $500,000. After all, some fans still recognize him as a sign. But it's impossible to share, especially since he asks for a 5% gross profit share, which is just a joke if he drinks too much. Ryan Reynolds' contract for Sharknado 2 is only a 2% share of the net profit, and Reynolds and his agent are already very satisfied with this figure. Eric hummed. He knew in his heart that Transformers has not yet been released and The Hangover is about to start. Ryan Reynolds' fate for the next few years is in his own hands, and at this time, not to mention that the company has already given him a share of the shares. Even if you don't give a share, even the salary is symbolically given $1 and Ryan Reynolds will obediently obey. Otherwise, cut off your scene with a click and see if you cry or not. After thinking for a moment, Eric spoke. Just do as you say. If Anthony Ferrante is a smart man, he will accept the conditions. If he's an idiot, let him get out of here. There's going to be a ton of depressed directors who want to take his place. Okay, I see. Facebook is also gaining momentum and just updated its first version a few days ago, adding real name authentication for public figures and the ability to transmit pictures via Bluetooth. The first feature is okay, but it's only aimed at celebrities, and it has little impact on mass users. The second feature has received praise from all users, and many people have reported that it is very inconvenient to upload pictures, and now it can be solved. As for the lack of Bluetooth, you can't expect me to replace your computer and phone. In less than 2 weeks, Facebook's users have soared at an average rate of 800,000 new users per day, and now it has reached the 10 million level. This new social network is frequently featured in major newspapers and online news, and even privately attracts many reporters who ask for interviews, including NBC, ABC, New York Times, and other influential media in North America. Fitz Heisenberg gave several interviews, but was confronted with this new user who suddenly appeared and took over the market with a devastating force. Instead of giving praise, most of the media expressed concern. In particular, Facebook's speech control and user information privacy are the focus of criticism. CBS TV did a special talk show, inviting 3 professors of journalism and sociology from Harvard University and Yale University. Asked them to talk openly about their views on Facebook on the show, but no one in the industry understands it. It is said to be a free interview, but the questions are actually stringed together in advance, and even the TV station will give you a pre-drafted answer. Just memorize it and read it in front of the camera. And black material is always the most attractive, so this talk show basically doesn't say good things about Facebook. It's all about the future and worrying about the online environment. Silicon Valley, on the other hand, is very bullish on Facebook, saying almost all good things, including Elon Musk, the future richest man in the world and Iron Man of Silicon Valley, Joe's gang leader who was reinvited back to the company, Bill Gates, the current richest man in the world, and Larry Page, one of the founders of Google, etc. They all say that Facebook is a very creative social network that will completely disrupt human relationships, as evidenced by its crazy increase in users. These Silicon Valley elites are also interested in Facebook's current user base and hope to announce it. However, the company strictly adheres to Eric's request and will not release the number of users for a short time, at least until the balloon is large enough. Many people are now interested in the boss behind Facebook, and almost everyone knows that Fitz-Seisenberg is nothing more than a puppet who has been pushed to the front of the stage. His resume is too simple, and at a glance, it is clear that at least it is absolutely impossible to launch so many Hollywood star platforms, and some people have speculated that the father of the gold owner may have a deep connection with the entertainment industry. Eric hasn't been to Silicon Valley recently, and there are a lot of reporters squatting there now, so it's better to show up less. He has been staying in a company on the set, and when he has nothing to do, he goes shopping in The Devil Girl and agrees to make a cameo appearance with Patty Jenkins. Of course, it is not a cameo acting, but a scene in which each other's movies are in charge of each other, and cameos between directors are also common in the entertainment industry. The Witch. Eric handed over the script to Patty Jenkins. The Life of Adele is almost finished, and there are still 5 scenes left, and I expect it to be finished tomorrow. Patty took a closer look, and it was still a familiar style, a storyboard script that was extremely detailed. So, are you going to let me finish or? Depending on your progress, this time I will give you higher permissions, and you can play freely. What? Eric took the script back from Piety and then tore it violently, and he tore off a dozen pages of the script at once. Picked out the text page and handed it to the other party. Look, the storyboard is gone. You can use your creativity. I don't limit you. OMG. That's a rare generosity. Patty Jenkins opened her mouth in surprise. Literary films are different from commercial films. Adele's life needs creativity. Maybe you can bring it a different feeling. Well, I accept this temporary employment. Looking at Patty, who was excited to leave, Eric was still relatively relieved. It may not be possible to make a commercial blockbuster for her, but she can definitely come up with a satisfactory work by making a literary film for her, especially a literary film from a female perspective. Just like Wonder Woman 1984, this film is completely written and directed by Patty Jenkins, who has absolute control on the set. The result is a superhero blockbuster, which has been turned into a literary film, and there is no refreshing play that the audience wants to watch. Although the literary drama that the audience doesn't like to watch is delicate and can move a group of female audiences, it is undoubtedly a minus for superhero movies, which is too procrastinating. What percentage of the audience are women who like to watch superhero movies? Everyone wants to watch Gal Gadot wielding a sword and fighting enemies, just like the first part of Wonder Woman. And the success of the first part is not all due to Patty Jenkins. This time I really have to thank Warner. After watching the movie, you will find that the villain Ares appeared inexplicably, and the foreshadowing was not enough, as if he suddenly jumped out. The reason is that the movie did not originally set Ares as the villain, and there was no ending of the big battle. Warner felt that it was not good after watching it, which was too unsuperheroic, so he decisively intervened to change the scene. After the second part is decentralized, everyone knows how much crotch they have. As Patty leaves, Charlize Theron and Christina Ricci, the latter best known for her role as Wednesday in The Addams Family, with a small baby face, walks over. At 23 years old, she still looks like she is 12 or 13, and 10 years later, she still looks like she is 12 or 13. Eric, why did the director leave? Theron asked curiously. Eric shrugged. Now, I'm the director of The Witch, and Patty has been assigned other jobs. Huh? The two women looked puzzled at the same time. Don't be surprised, it's just a cameo, just this afternoon. The two girls breathed a sigh of relief. This is about the same. Their partner with Patty is still going well, and the sudden change of director is not very reassuring after all. Eric, in particular, is in Schrödinger's state of polarization, and no one knows what his level is until the first work is released. Seeing the worries of the two women, Eric smiled slightly. Don't worry, I'm good at shooting female subjects, especially gay subjects. Let me see which one we should shoot. Wednesday held up the script in his hand. Game 25. The the first night that Saobi and Aaron spent together. Okay, give me 10 minutes and let me figure it out. Eric quickly flipped through the script. As a classic film that won many awards around the world that year, he naturally watched it several times. Whether it was a movie or a real event, he knew a lot about it, and he had seen documentaries. As an adapted movie, the female devil is actually a bit deliberately suspected of creating dramatic conflicts and tensions. For example, Theron plays the prostitute killer Irene, although she is ugly in the movie, but this image is designed according to the image of the real Erin after many years in prison. In reality, Erin had certain requirements for her appearance during the years of her crimes, including the early stage of her imprisonment, and her appearance could not be said to be beautiful, but at least she passed the test, and she was by no means full of flesh. Otherwise, why do you think she is soliciting customers? Besides, she was once married to a rich boss, and she has good looks. Saobi is completely magical, and the real Saobi is named Tyria Moore, not some ignorant girls in the movie, but a woman a few years younger than Irene. The personality is also different from the complete selfishness in the movie, and she lived with Aaron for 5 years. Among them, Aaron did not commit a crime in the first 3 years, and even got rid of bad habits such as stealing and violence, so it can be seen that the lives of the two should be relatively happy. In reality, these two women should have really loved each other. Not like in the movie, it was purely Saobi who was using Aaron. Eric flipped through the script and talked to Theron and Wednesday a bit, and it was certain that Piety was still following the path of the devil's change. Eric decided to add a touch of helplessness and warmth to the case, not to clear his name. After all, serial killings are very obvious revenge social perversions, and they can't be whitewashed for any reason, but at least they make it closer to reality. People are complex, and this should be reflected. After thinking about it, Eric picked up the pen and paper and began to change his lines, watching the tip of the pen slide quickly on the paper. Theron turned and walked to the side, looking upside down to see if he understood the words. Sensing the shadows, Eric glanced up at her out of the corner of his eye and continued writing. "I'm sorry, but if you're not used to it, I can stay away," Theron said softly. "It's okay, you're going to use those lines right away anyway. You have both, but you're the majority, and I'm going to add some tension to the scene and make Aaron and Naomi a little bit fuller." Hearing this, Wednesday walked over to the other side of him and looked down. After almost an hour of revision, deletion, and writing, Eric finally came up with a result that he was more satisfied with. Theron and Wednesday stood by for an hour, looking down at him as he wrote and draw. The staff next to him looked at the three of them carefully. As the big boss, Eric frowned and didn't say anything, so no one dared to take the initiative to go up. Originally, there was a special person on the set who was responsible for moving the actors' seats, but they were stunned and didn't dare to come over, so that Theron and Wednesday had to stand all the time. However, both of them are very professional actors, and when they saw Eric change his lines on the spot, they were also fascinated by it, and they didn't feel tired at all. "Okay, I guess that's pretty much it," Eric said slowly. Then he looked at the two of them. "I'm sorry, the handwriting may not be clear. The writing is a bit confusing. You can ask me if you don't understand it." Theron and Wednesday looked at each other, the former shaking his head slightly, and the latter having fewer lines and shaking his head equally to indicate that he didn't need to. "Can you read it?" Theron nodded slightly. "I'm just standing next to me. It seems that this is the right choice. In fact, the lines are almost memorized." "I'm okay. I've memorized the lines, and the director, you look so handsome when you're serious." Wednesday was not to be outdone. "Really? Of course. Ha 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 ha. It's comfortable to work with great actors, and you don't even have to spend time making copies." Eric stood up and said loudly, "Everyone is in place," which boss scene 25 action. The plot of this scene is that Saobi brings Erin home and gives her a hot bath and warm bed that she has not seen for a long time, and she used to live in a messy warehouse. Two people on the margins of society came together, they warmed each other, felt the camaraderie from each other, and rolled the sheets by the way. Eric adds a scene after the two roll the sheets. At this time, the two blended together and Irene, who felt the taste of love, also opened her heart. She told about her past, and Eric directly added the real experience of Aaron in reality to flesh out the character. In fact, Piety's filming also briefly mentions part of Aaron's past at the beginning, but the script doesn't write much about this, and the portrayal is too simple, and Eric completes it for her. In the shot, the two hugged each other in the afterglow after enjoying it. Wednesday was lying on Theron's side. Only half of his face was exposed, and he didn't need to make an expression. Theron, on the other hand, is in a masculine position, hugging and patting each other like a man, while at the same time behaving like a woman. Looking at Theron, who closed his eyes tightly and gasped softly, Eric called out directly, "Theron, the expression is a little bigger. You have to understand that Erin is a prostitute, and the nature of her work has made her numb to do love. But now she feels like she's found true love, and that love is passionate, and it should be warm when it comes to her body and expressions." "Okay, director, I see." Theron made an okay gesture. Female Devil Scene 25 Action. This time, Theron's expression was much bigger, and he even added a word God himself. Her eyes are misty, like a smoker who has been holding back for a long time, and the enjoyment and fascination of a mouthful of nicotine into her lungs is really in place. After a few moments, however, her expression changed again, rubbing her eyes and rudely grabbing toilet paper and wiping it on her nose. Seeing this, Wednesday raised his head. "Aaron, what's wrong with you?" Blowing his nose vigorously, Theron shook his head slightly. "It's nothing." "No, something must have happened to you. What happened? Did I make you uncomfortable?" Theron hurriedly denied. "No, of course there is no Ciobe. It is my own reason." "Tell me, why?" asked Wednesday again. After a moment's hesitation, Theron said in an embarrassed and hesitant tone, "I just thought of some bad things, but it's all in the past." But in the close-up, Ciobe looked straight at her with wide eyes. Wednesday's eyes were already large, and they contained intense curiosity, just like her somewhat childish personality. "Say it, I want to get to know you, Aaron, as well as you already know me."
Ka.
Eric interrupted the shooting with a yell. He pointed to Wednesday. "Richie, there are two meanings to this line. One is that you have already revealed your past to Aaron at the bar, and the other is that you have just completed the great harmony of life. In the process of love, Aaron is the dominant party. She controls and explores you, so she already knows you well. Then when you say this line, the tone should contain a hint of shyness and cuteness, which is more in line with your age and personality." Wednesday was a little surprised by Eric's interpretation. "Director, does it still have such a meaning? I didn't realize it at all." Eric smiled. "As I said, I'm very good at shooting female love themes." "Yes, you can see it now." Filming. Resumes, and at Ciobe's request, Erin begins to slowly recount her tragic past. "Ciobe, I used to have a terrible life. My father was a bastard and a pervert, and he liked young girls with guns. Later I heard that he was in prison, probably unable to bear the beatings inside, and he committed suicide. When it comes to his father's suicide, Theron smiles, and his resentment towards his father can be seen. Then my mom didn't know where she went one day, and I never saw her again anyway, and I was adopted by my grandparents." Wednesday sighed slightly. "Parents just like to abandon their children, but fortunately you still have grandparents." Theron said in a mocking tone, "It's a good thing? You know what? From me." At this point, Theron suddenly went berserk, lifted the quilt violently, and roared like a flood that had suddenly burst its banks. Wednesday seemed to be frightened and hurried away from her with a frightened expression. Until Theron finishes going crazy, looking at each other with anger and tears in his eyes. Only then did Wednesday slowly crawl over and hold Theron in his arms, and the status of the two completed the transition between men and women at this moment. Theron continued weakly, "When I was 15, my grandmother died, and then I was kicked out of the house until you met me. I regret why that old bastard didn't kill himself like his son-in-law. Maybe he's alive and well now. Another thing I almost forgot was that I became addicted to drugs and started trading my body for drugs. Then No, no more Aaron." Wednesday interrupted Theron and hugged her tighter, and the two snuggled up to each other. "It's great, your performance is perfect. This one is over." Hearing this, the two daughters breathed a sigh of relief and let go of each other. It is now June. Even if there is air conditioning on the scene, it is still relatively hot to film under the quilt. "I thought it would be NG many times, but I didn't expect it to go so well. Richie, well done. Theron, I said you would win an Oscar." Theron smiled heartily. "Director, you have also changed my opinion. It seems that what those newspapers say is false." "What?" "Say that you don't understand the director at all. Just a rich second generation with a hot head. If they are here, they should apologize to you." Eric put on a very serious expression. "On this point, we are on the same page. But I'm just joking, saying something polite to compliment you." "What?" "It seems that the publicity and public relations expenses of The Female Devil can be saved." Eric scratched at his non-existent beard and feigned thought. Theron immediately waved his hand. "Don't. Director Patty will tear me apart. That sentence just now is a joke." "Really? Me too. Ha 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 ha." Working with beautiful women, time always flies quickly. Eric felt that before he had even started, the hands of the clock had already reached the end of the day. He couldn't help but sigh. Why is it over so soon? At this point, both Theron and Wednesday took off their makeup and changed back into their clothes. Without the blessing of makeup, the appearance of the two came back in an instant. Even in order to better perform the role, Theron began to eat wildly from receiving the role and gained dozens of pounds in more than a month. But as a South African star, her foundation is so good, those fats still can't change her sexy and beautiful face. She is still a big beauty. The flesh feels good. It's too thin and I'm panicking. Theron came over and said, "Eric, will you continue tomorrow?" "No, I've only had an appointment with Piety for an afternoon, and it's not her style to make any more films." "That's a pity. You're a good director. You have a good temper and don't curse, and you're good at inspiring actors, and you're very comfortable partnering." "Really? Then how about I ask you a play?" Theron pouted and thought for a moment. "Then I want to see what kind of play it is. I'm a future Oscar-winning actress, and I'm very picky." "Ha ha ha ha. I promise to make you satisfied. The movie is expected to be shot next year, with a big investment and a big production." "What's going on? Is there a script?" Eric pointed to the Tylian cave. "The script is not there yet, but it's all in it, and the content is about dreams and reality." "Like The Matrix?" Theron's eyes lit up, and he suddenly became interested. Everyone knows how popular The Matrix is. Not only sent Keanu Reeves to the peak of his career, but the supporting roles are also soft to pick up the scenes. Although he has starred in many movies and even partnered with Keanu Reeves twice, the box office of the movies he participated in was more than 200 million at most, and he never reached the level of explosion. If you can participate in a big production and explode at the box office, it may be the moment when your career reaches its peak. No, it sounds a bit like it, but it's actually completely different. The Matrix is about the virtual and the real intention is to embody the human quest for free will. And my film is about reality and dreams, and the core is human emotion, growth, and redemption. But this will be a suspense film in the guise of science fiction, with a complex plot and twists. It sounds interesting. I've never been involved in a sci-fi movie since my debut, so maybe it's a good idea to give it a try. What's the name of the movie? Eric smiled slightly. The beginning, or more colloquially translated as Inception. In the original plane, the English name of Inception is Inception, which means beginning. Since the appearance of this movie, the word beginning has been deeply bound to the movie, and other movies almost dare not use this word, because if it is used, it will be reminiscent of Inception, and it will not be counted as popular. Similarly, Friends are reminiscent of Friends, Avatar is for Avatar, and Avengers is for the Avengers. Many words give people a fixed association, which is the power of IP for excellent film and television works. Inception? Well, the name gives a very confusing feeling. That's right to be confused. Suspense sci-fi films. Are you interested in learning more about it? Theron looked at the time. Okay, I'm fine anyway. Then, let's have a meal together. I'm in for a treat. Where to go? I know there's a nice private dining room right down New Dot. Leonard's restaurant? Theron asked. You know? Of course, I frequented their house. I'll see you in an hour. I'm going to go to the crew of Adele's Life to deal with it. Okay, I'll see you later. Returning to Studio 4, this side is also calling it a day. The American crew is very standardized in this regard, and generally will not work overtime, and overtime must be paid for overtime. Actors, like ordinary office workers, strictly adhere to the concept of time, and will not be late unless there are special circumstances. This kind of system is actually very good, because the regulations of the norm are reflected in the actors who are more dedicated. Seeing Eric return, Patty Jenkins pointed to the last 2 pages of the script and said, Eric, I'll leave you with the last one, and the sense of ritual is yours. Eric laughed and said, How's my crew? Great, how did you do it? The Olsen sisters' acting skills are really good. I have never found it before. It seems that those youth idol dramas really limit their development. To this, Ashley and Mary could only smile and say nothing. Eric said unashamedly, I have my own training methods, and I am very good at training actors. The 2 sisters nodded secretly. I really know how to train. Don't look at it just an afternoon. I've already helped you enrich the characters and plot. Changed a scene. I hope you don't mind. Which paragraph? Asked Piety warily. It's mainly the 25th game. To add the character of Aaron a little bit better, and I have a suggestion. You're the boss and the super producer. Say it, I'll listen. Eric coughed lightly. At the beginning of the movie, the script portrays Aaron as a little girl dreaming of stardom. I think this setting is too old-fashioned, and she is not like this in reality. Biopic films, or more in line with the character's life is impermanent, should not erase the unbearable suffering of her childhood and youth. Patty was silent for a moment. Actually, when I was writing the script, I thought about this problem, but the plot is too dark, and I am worried that the audience will not accept it and the censorship will be stuck. Then, do you think the current plot is not dark enough? Or do you think that there are very few fucks in it? Well, when I was in the market to attract investment, I originally went to an independent production company, and I didn't think MGM would take a fancy to it. You know, big companies like you, making and distributing films, all that is considered is a wider acceptance, commercial money. If you can shoot G-level, don't shoot PG-13 level, and R-level cannot shoot without shooting. And independent production companies, the ability to communicate with the censors is definitely not as good as that of large companies like you, so I cut out all the darker plots to reduce the resistance to release. But if MGM releases, it should be good to add those rape, Lewin, abandonment, and drug addiction plots. Eric nodded. That's right, if you want to be black, you can go dark to the end. You don't have to worry about the censorship, just let it go. Then listen to you, Eric. Seeing off Piety Jenkins, Eric patted his ass and prepared to leave. Seeing that there were no outsiders around, Mary grabbed his hand. Eric, let's go. Ashley and I invite you to dinner. Today is unfortunate that I have already arranged it. Really, it's not going to be a date with a woman, is it? Eric glared at her and said righteously, "Am I that kind of person? Besides, who could be more seductive than you two?" Mary grinned, and so well, what about tomorrow? It depends, you know I'm busy. Busy, busy, busy. Can you be busy? And you often run to Shed 6. I think you're going to Charlize Theron. Ashley frowned slightly. Eric laughed and said, "Although we are already in a relationship between you and me and I have you, I am going to sue you for slander if I say this." Okay. Come over and hug. If it's not arranged tomorrow, I'll accompany you, can't I? One left and one right hold the Olsen sisters in their arms, and the picture is like a classic scene in Xiao Li's Flying Knife. "I'm sorry I didn't come at the right time." "No, you came at the right time." After sending the Olsen sisters away, Eric arrived at Leonard's restaurant 10 minutes early, and arriving a little early was a sign of gentlemanly demeanor. It didn't take long for the waiter to lead Theron into the box. Unlike other hotels, Leonard's restaurant offers private room service. There is a big difference between the United States and Huaxia. Almost every hotel in Huaxia has a private room, even if it is a small restaurant on the side of the road. However, almost all hotels in the United States do not provide it, and some hotels have even been complained of dining discrimination or identity discrimination because of this. Only a very small number of private rooms, such as salons, clubs and private restaurants that are not open to the public, will offer private room service. To say that the waiters here are also very happy. Not only the salary is higher than that of ordinary restaurants, but also the stars can often be seen, and the celebrities give more tips. It sounds like the job is not very decent, not as good as office white-collar workers, but the actual income is higher than the average white-collar worker, and the only thing to do is to keep it secret. After ordering the food, Eric asked, "Do you need wine?" "The wine is ready. 2 glasses of white wine." Writing it down in a small notebook, the waiter left the box. "Theron, is that all you eat?" Theron nodded. "It's enough. I calculated it with a nutritionist, and it won't be a problem to maintain calories overnight. People who can overcome their appetite have great perseverance." Eric sighed. There is no way. Female stars must pay attention to their figures, and the requirements of male stars will be a little looser, but if you take the idol route, it is also a painful process. Eric nodded. He had heard before that Hugh Jackman had been training and eating rigorously for more than 10 years in order to maintain his figure and play Wolverine. In order to stay active, Ronaldo hardly touches sweets and carbonated drinks, a habit that has also been maintained for more than 10 years. I really can't imagine how they persevere and how much temptation they have to endure when they see others eating. Theron, anyway, I'm going to shoot the witch devil now. I don't think there's any need to control it. Can't I reduce it back after filming? Theron hurriedly refused. This is not good. I have gained almost 30 pounds, and now is the best time to play Irene. And I have been filming for more than 10 days. If I suddenly get fat or thin, even if the amplitude is not large, it will affect the audience's perception. That was indeed a reason to consider, and after a while, food and wine were brought over. Boom! The two clinked glasses lightly and took a sip each. Theron took a piece of broccoli and put it in his mouth and chewed it slowly. Tell me about your play. What's it called? Inception. Yes, Inception. Talk about the plot in detail. It sounds interesting. Well, Dom Cobb is also the male lead. He is an experienced thief, but unlike the average thief, he is a dream thief. He has the ability to dive into other people's dreams, to explore and seize the secrets of other people's hearts, which could be bank card passwords, safe deposit box passwords, everything. He led his team to continue to commit crimes, traveled to major forces, and became an international fugitive, and this time the story happened between 2 consortia. Eric briefly explained the synopsis, and Theron listened attentively and gradually stopped eating food. After Eric finished speaking, she frowned and asked, "This is really a complicated story. I didn't understand it too well, but I can probably judge that there should be two more important female characters in this play, right?" "Yes, Dream Builder Ariadne and Phantom Mel. The former is the helper that Cobb is looking for to complete the mission, and the latter is his wife, or dead, to be exact." "And which role are you going to let me play?" "Phantom Mel, whether it is in terms of temperament, appearance, age, and other aspects, you are the best candidate for Mel." "Why not the Dream Builder Ariadne?" Theron asked. Eric explained, "Because I'm going to look for Christian Bale, who was born in 1974 and you were born in 1975, just a year apart. He's 188 centimeters tall, you're 177 centimeters, and there's a difference in the golden ratio. He's handsome and handsome, though a little worse than me." Poof. Theron sneered, then quickly wiped his mouth. "I'm sorry, you shouldn't have made me laugh while I was eating. Is this a joke? Do you think Belle is more handsome than me?" Theron shook his head. "Of course not, you are different types of handsome. If you have to compare, you're superior." Eric nodded. "That's pretty much it." Theron continued to cover his mouth and smile. Okay. Don't laugh, anyway. Belle stands with you and is a very perfect on-screen couple, so I want you to play the role of Mel." "And what about Ariadne?" "Nicole Kidman, Ariadne is a better dream builder than Cobb, and this role needs a woman with strong aura and charm to play, and I think Nicole Kidman is a good fit. You can't let her and Bale play the screen couple. Just thinking about that picture is very incompatible." Theron conceived it in his head for a moment, then agreed. "It's really unimaginable. The two of them don't feel like lovers at all." "Yes, imagine that this year's Oscar Nicole Kidman won the actress, and next year it will be you, and then the two actresses come together in one movie, and it sounds very attractive. Of course, the quality of the movie is fundamental, and I won't rely on this crooked way to publicize it. I can see it from the fact that you changed the script of The Witch on the spot. I can see that Eric is a director with aspirations." Hee, thanks for the compliment. By the way, are there any other characters who have been decided? "Well, Arthur the Outpost, I'm going to use Heath Ledger, the other characters." Just as he was about to say that the other roles hadn't been thought out yet, Eric suddenly realized that Theron wasn't trying to get a role for his little boyfriend. I have to say that a few actors prevaricated her. But after thinking about it, wouldn't this be too obvious? It's better to give the other party a chance to audition first, and appear to be generous and personable. Anyway, the movie won't start filming until next year. Maybe this year will drive that kid away. It doesn't matter if he doesn't get rid of him. It's difficult for the other party during the audition. Just brush it. 36 plans, wanting to capture the past. Thinking of this, he opened his mouth and said, "There are no other roles yet." "Yes? My boyfriend, Stuart Townsend, might be able to audition for a role, but I'm not asking for it, of course, just a suggestion," Theron said with some restraint. Eric naturally pretended to be generous. "No problem, let him audition when the time comes, and if he performs well, he will be admitted first." "Thank you, Eric, for giving you a toast." Theron smiled and held up his wine. "No thanks, really. I won't use him anyway," Eric muttered to himself. The meal lasted more than 2 hours, but eating was secondary and half of the food was still on Theron and Eric's plates. 2 more glasses of wine were added. The two spent most of their time chatting, first talking about Inception, and Eric explained the worldview setting and plot to Theron in detail. But Theron said that he still didn't fully understand it and that he needed to see the full script. Later, they diverged to other fields, and the two talked about their views on movies, who is the director of commercial films they admire the most, and who is the director of literary films they admire the most. "What's your favorite movie? Who is the actor you admire the most?" Then he talked about his views on the film industry, and Theron was surprised and felt incredible about Eric's film shooting techniques and concepts, as well as his enjoyment of the future development trend of the film and television industry. For example, comic book movies. Eric said that it will be popular in the future. Theron said that he couldn't understand that the success of a Spider-Man didn't mean anything, and the glory and weakness of Batman in the 90s, and the same was true for pushing the Superman series forward. There are also other miscellaneous superhero comic movies in the middle, most of which end in violent death, and it doesn't look like it will rise. Eric also suggested that if she has money, she should buy some shares of Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon for a long time, which are all high-performing stocks and will not lose money. The guests and hosts of the meal enjoyed themselves, and the two exchanged their opinions. Walking out of Leonard's restaurant, Eric drops Theron to the car, which is a white Land Rover. The tall model is indeed in line with her gritty queen temperament. Help her open the car door. In more than 10 days, the two have become familiar with a lot, and tonight's negotiation has deepened their understanding of each other, and the two hugged shallowly. Eric, I'm amazed by your knowledge. I'm curious. You really haven't studied film before? No, I'm only recently exposed. Maybe that's genius. It's a great talent. Theron was as emotional as anyone who couldn't believe it. Just like your beauty, some things are predestined by God, Eric said as if complimentingly, and Theron smiled. By the way, I'm going to make sure you're okay with the wine, and I don't want to be in the news for drunk driving and leave a criminal record to work as a social worker. Don't worry, it's just a little wine. The alcohol content can't reach it. If you don't worry, I'll send you home. Forget it, you drank too, and since it's okay, then I'll go. Rejecting Eric's request, Theron drove away alone, and Eric had no choice but to get into his car and drive away with the throttle. Looking at the high-rise buildings that quickly crossed outside, for a moment it was very similar to the scene in Inception. This film will definitely be made next year. Eric has long planned it, and when he interviewed for the actor of Transformers, he said to Heath Ledger, "The reason why it will not be launched this year is mainly because the investment in Inception is a bit high." Eric has estimated that under the premise of directing himself, he can pay a dime at all, and the screenwriter and director have no salary plus dividends, as is the case with all the films he has participated in. Anyway, the company is its own, but after it goes public, you need to pay your own salary because it will involve accounting, and then the company's money is not just your own. And if it weren't for Eric to lead and replace Nolan with a shot, the dividends and salaries would have to be more than $20 million. Actors can also save a little, plus they are not a real-life shooting maniac like Nolan, so there is no need to really build an ice tower. Miscellaneous calculations should save $400,000 or $500,000, but even so, it must be at least $80 million before it is possible to shoot Inception. $90 million is more reasonable. The actor is determined according to what he said at the dinner just now. Christian Bale is much more cost-effective than Charlize. Eric feels that Bale is not only cheaper, but also has better acting skills. And Charlize's height is only 180 centimeters, standing with the 177 centimeters Tsai Huang and the 180 centimeters Nico, which is obviously not as suitable as Belle. In the original Inception, the Phantom Mel is played by Maria Cotillon, nicknamed Melian in China. This is also an old acquaintance that Eric doesn't know. La Vie en Rose was originally her posthumous work, and now it is given to Nico. Inception is also her masterpiece, and it was booked to Theron. Ma Yang is miserable, and I don't know if he will win the Oscar in the future. After all, a good work happens once in 10 years, and maybe the luck of this life has been taken away. No way, who made you not my woman, but you got so many high-quality resources. If you are reborn again in the next life, we will meet in advance and compensate you. The biggest character in the adaptation is Ellen Peggy, or the dream builder played by the transgender Elliot Peggy. Nolan sets up this character as a very talented little girl, but has no experience, and needs to learn for a while before she can integrate into the team. But since Nico was cast, Eric decided to change the role to a dream builder who is not weaker than the male protagonist Cobb. She doesn't need to learn and can help the team more. In Nolan's version, Alan Page is very strong in the setting, but in actual action, the effect is not obvious. After Eric changed the script, the battle in the dream will be more intense, and Nico's ability will be more prominent. Then set up a scene of Nico and Theron directly opposite each other. These two beauties have never been in the same frame on screen, which must be a good gimmick and more commercially appealing. Before the crossing, the two collaborated on a work, Sexy Bomb, but the script was slightly weaker, and the final box office was only more than $80 million, which disappointed the acting skills of the two major actresses. Back home, Eric texted Theron asking if she had arrived home safely and if she had been confronted by the police. The other party replied that he had arrived home, and there was a smiling face hanging on the back. Taking off his coat, the house was deserted without Joshua's shouting. This kid went back to the San Francisco team a few days ago, and it seems that he broke up with his mysterious girlfriend, and he went back in frustration. Eric still doesn't know who his half-moon girlfriend is, but it's better to go back and learn management well to prepare for the future. Eric, Billy is here, waiting for you on the second floor. Mom took her coat and said, "Well, I know. I asked him to come. Has he been here for a long time?" "It's not too long, 10 minutes. "Okay, I got it." Pulling 2 beers out of the fridge, Eric walked up to the second floor room. The door opened, and Billy sat in a chair with a photo album in his hand. Hearing footsteps, he looked back. "Eric, you're back." Eric handed the beer to Billy, and the two clinked glasses and took a sip. "What were you looking at when you first got home?" Billy raised the photo album in his hand, a photo of our college, when Warren was very thin. "Skinny fart, he's 200 pounds in college." Eric spat out. "I mean, compared to now, look at him. Since he helped you manage the company, his belly is bigger than a pregnant woman who is about to give birth." Hee, this proves that he is living a very happy life. "I sent Pema Hardy over to preside over the overall situation. Originally wanted him to study and then ascend to the position, but I didn't expect the two to get together." "What?" Billy's eyes widened in surprise. "I've seen that woman, and she's looking great. I mean the body and looks. Warren was able to get her hands on her. It's kind of incredible." "That's right, I thought so too. This fat man went out shit lucky." Billy sighed. "Warren actually has a girlfriend, and now there are 5 of us, and only I am still single." "Why, so do I," Eric pointed to himself. Billy scoffed. "Come on, will you be single? Nicole Kidman or Gal Gadot, which is not the best. I fly everywhere every day, and I don't even have time to talk about a girlfriend, alas." Eric laughed. "If you don't want to fly, I'll change your position." "Don't be. Flying actually has the benefits of flying, although I don't have time to fall in love. But the takeout is very comfortable, or wait until I'm tired of eating. You can change my position again." After a brief chat, Billy walked over and closed the door. Although the villa was safe, it was more comfortable to close the door when talking about business. Eric crossed Erlang's legs and said, "Tell me, how is this trip to London?" Billy pulled a USB stick out of his pocket. "This has what you want." Eric took the USB flash drive, opened the laptop and plugged it in, and after clicking on it, there was a video lying quietly inside. Click, click. After pressing the mouse, the video plays. The picture is not very clear, and the shooting angle is also problematic, and it is a candid shot at first glance. His voice was a little hoarse, but he could hear what was being said. In the center of the shot, it is the BBC bastard reporter Martin Basher, in addition to the arms of 2 people next to him. Several people sit around the dining table, most likely eating at someone's house. The previous paragraph was all non-nutritious dialogue. A few people chatted and bragged. Billy dragged the progress bar, and an interesting dialogue appeared. "Martin, you're in the limelight right now, and Michael Jackson's interview is really good, and the eyes of the whole world are attracted to you. no worse than Princess Diana's. At this time, several people had already drunk a lot of wine, and their interest was a little high. In addition, it was a private party, and they were all good friends, so they naturally began to speak freely, and what should be said and what should not be said was much weaker. In the picture, Martin Basher laughed. "This is the masterpiece of my career, Princess Diana. It was the first beautiful battle I fought. In order to get access to Diana, I forged a lot of documents to trick her and her stupid brother into going all the way. Ha 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 ha. That stupid woman actually believed it. Can you believe it? She believed me. I showed her a bank statement and told her that the person around her had been bought by the Murdoch Media Group to become an informant to spy on her, but the bill was actually computer-generated. Diana didn't understand the techniques at all, and she was at my mercy and answered whatever answer I wanted, which is a really funny memory." Next to him, the friend who didn't show his face suddenly smiled and complimented Martin Basher, constantly praising him. "Martin, what about Michael Jackson this time? You guy must have used a lot of tricks." Martin Basher continued to laugh maniacally. "Of course, it took me a lot of time to get Jackson done. For a full year, I even said that I knew UN Secretary General Kofi Annan and could arrange a children's charity event for him to go to Africa. In the end, Jackson agreed to my follow-up and interview, which was a long process, but fortunately the results were good and lived up to my efforts." Several friends also laughed. "That's right. After the documentary aired, Michael Jackson was ruined by you. What the king of the world's pop, what the greatest artist, we journalists are the uncrowned king, in your hands, Martin. He is just a pawn to be manipulated and used." Martin Basher swallowed a large sip of wine and said with more and more eyebrows, "That's right. I don't like that guy very much. Obviously he is black, but he disguises himself as white, thinking that in this way he can change his skin color and class. I'm just going to destroy him. Even if he's never done child molesting, I can make him like that through editing and footage." Even if he tried to defend himself, the moment the documentary was released, there were bound to be a lot of fools who believed that Michael Jackson, like Diana, was just a stupid person. "Martin, so you chose Michael Jackson as a target because you hated the color of his skin?" The friend continued to try to ask deeper. But this time Martin Basher did not continue, but smiled silently, bowed his head and began to eat. Seeing that he didn't speak, the other party simply tried to seduce. "No, no, no. We are all reporters. There are many people who have more influence than Jackson. There is no need for him. Let me guess. I've heard rumors that there is a deep conflict between him and Sony Music, as if it's because of copyright issues. Sony Music wanted to buy out the rights in Jackson's hands, but the latter never agreed, and he had a public fight with Sony Music last year. Martin, it's not like Sony hired you to do this, is it?" In the video, Martin Basher smiles playfully and says meaningfully, "You guess. Maybe this secret won't be revealed until everyone involved is dead." After the video, there was no relevant content, and everything reverted to chatting and bragging, which was not nutritious. Although the last question is not clear, this video is enough to prove a lot of things. Eric patted Billy on the shoulder with relief. "Good work." Billy smiled. "What's so polite with me?" In Huaxia, secretly filmed videos are generally not used as evidence. Even if the content of the video is extremely beneficial to you, the premise of the clandestine filming has already violated the privacy and other rights of the person being secretly photographed, so the court will generally not accept it. Similarly, there is no private detective profession in Huaxia, and all people and organizations who do things such as clandestine photography, stalking, and doxing in the name of private detectives have already violated the law. In the United States, however, the opposite is true. Not to mention private detectives, there are paid public detectives in police departments in the United States, such as Chinese Detective Li Chongyu, who can be understood as this type. There are more private detectives because they are more efficient, so the business is quite prosperous. They not only accept civil cases such as cheating and rape, but also criminal cases such as homicide, rape, theft, and domestic violence. Moreover, there are many methods of investigation and evidence collection by private detectives, such as stalking, eavesdropping, and secretly filming videos. Because the purpose and premise of using illegal means is to win the case, as long as it does not involve hard violence such as beatings and detention or coercion, the acts of private investigators are allowed, and the evidence obtained can be admissible in court. So don't look at this video was secretly filmed, but it still has legal effect. To get this video, Michael Dobbs must have contributed, and the shooting angle was so appropriate. Only Martin Basher showed his face on the scene. It was definitely a specially constructed trap. And the cost of asking this old politician to help is not small. How exactly did it work? Eric didn't want to ask more, and said directly, "Billy, how much money was spent to find a financial report? You can choose for yourself." Billy nodded. "In addition, I also gave Michael Dobbs the script for House of Cards that you sent me. He was very satisfied after watching it, praised the adaptation very well, and desperately hoped to see the finished film as soon as possible. And then there's the content about Princess Diana, which Michael Dobbs asked not to be released, and only the part of MJ that was made public was enough." "Why?" asked Eric. "Eric, that's Princess Diana, the princess who is loved by the entire Commonwealth, and that interview back then had too much influence. Not just to Princess Diana herself, but to the face of the entire British royal family. That interview tore the fig leaf of the royal family and had a serious impact. Especially since Princess Diana died just a year after her divorce from Prince Charles, there are too many conspiracy theories circulating about her death. MJ is just an entertainment figure. Princess Diana is a political figure. The two of them are completely different." "Michael Dobbs worries about involving himself?" said Eric, thoughtfully. "Yes, anyway, that's what he wants." Eric put the USB stick away. "Well, I'll take care of it." After sending Billy away, he picked up the phone. It had been so long, and Dan Jones hadn't given a message, and this girl didn't take Partier's father too seriously. It rang for a long time before the phone was connected. "Boss, call me in the evening. What do you have to say?" Dan Jones's lazy voice came from the other side. Eric said solemnly, "If I don't call, you won't take the initiative, right?" "Hee, in a hurry. Don't worry, when I finish the task, I will naturally go to you." "How long will it take?" "It's not too long before the Michael Jackson case opens, and if you can't, I have to change people in time." Ahem. Hearing that Eric was going to make a substitution, Dan Jones coughed lightly, and then changed to a serious attitude. "That's it. I'll go to MGM tomorrow to find you and report on the progress." Results. Partial results, but at least let you know that the money was not spent in vain. "Okay, tomorrow at 3 p.m., wait for me in the office." The next day, after breakfast, Eric made a beeline for the set. "Today, I am going to shoot the last scene of Adele's life, and it will be completed after filming." As the personnel arrived one after another, everyone was very excited. Although more than a month of filming is not a long time, according to the company's regulations, you can take a few days off after filming. Who wouldn't love a holiday? Ashley and Mary took the script and familiarized themselves with the final lines. Andrea walked back and forth around the field, and Neil Blomkamp commanded the set. "Director, it's time to turn it on." Andrea's voice came over the intercom. Eric picked up the horn and shouted, "The Life of Adele, Scene 45, action." The last scene is not difficult, just a simple dialogue, put in the middle of the plot of the movie. Making a movie is not acting in a movie. There is no need to follow the order. What to shoot first, and then what to shoot mainly depends on which scene is more convenient. The first scene in which some actors enter the group is a tragic death scene, and the last scene is when everyone laughs and eats hot pot. In the shot, Ashley and Mary snuggle together, standing in front of a drawing board and admiring the graffiti. Anyway, Eric called it graffiti, which was a piece of art bought by the props crew, and each one was worth hundreds of dollars, but he couldn't understand where it was noble. This painting is in the style of Gauguin. I imitated. Do you know Gauguin? He was a master of French Impressionism. This painting is in Repin style, my friends, and if you look at these two paintings, you will see that they are completely different, because Repin's style is much more realistic. He is Russian. Emma, played by Mary, points to the collection of paintings one by one, as if telling a treasure. Her eyes are full of light, so that people can tell at a glance that she is a girl who loves art very much. On the other hand, Adele, played by Ashley, she was born just an ordinary girl, an ordinary family, ordinary parents, went to an ordinary school, and did an ordinary job. Her face revealed incomprehension and confusion. She did not understand art at all, and she was not interested. So, she could only listen mechanically to her lover's narration. From here, it can be seen that the two have completely different living conditions, and they are basically people from two worlds. Their love stems from a glimpse, from hormonal restlessness, from love at first sight. However, people from the two worlds, if they want to be together for a long time, it is not enough to rely on hormones. They also need to have common support, but they have nothing in common. People who are different can fall in love at first sight, but they can't stay together. Eat when you're hungry, cry when you're sad, want to be loved when you're lonely, quarrel when there's a crack, and break up and leave after the pain. This is Adele's life, and it's the life of all ordinary people. Under the camera, the Olsen sisters accurately expressed this emotion, and this scene passed by. Eric picked up the microphone he had just put down and shouted again, "Great! This scene is over." He looked around and finally said in the expectant gaze of everyone, "I announce that Adele's life is finished." Yes. The set burst into cheers, and everyone applauded. Eric walked up to Judy. "The movie is finished. Get back to work for me." Walked up to the field attendant. "Good job, Yellen." He walked over to the camera and gave a thumbs up. "Good work, Carl." Continue to the radio. "Lynn, your ability has opened my eyes." Then he walked over to the props group. "Frendel, you're a good captain. Everyone is great." Like the group leader of the group, Eric praised everyone in the crew. He started from the grassroots field work, and he knows the hard work of the low-level personnel. Finally, he came to Andrea's side. "Andrea, I have to thank you so much that I can keep the crew running normally during my absence." The British female director smiled. "There is no director. The main thing is that your script is very detailed, and I don't need to use my brain." "Hee hee, what's your next plan?" Andrea thought for a moment. "Not yet. I really didn't expect the movie to be made so quickly. It seems to be over as soon as I wake up. To be honest, it's a bit sudden. I'm not ready yet." "Have you ever thought about making your own movie?" Andrea said slowly. "I have thought about it, but I think my ability is still insufficient, so I want to start with a short film first. I am afraid that the big screen will make investors lose money." Eric laughed. "There are really not many directors like you who are willing to think about investors, who doesn't want to make more money. The main thing is that I don't want to get a bad reputation for myself, for the sake of the long term." "Well, so let's do it. How about you make me an assistant director again?" "So soon? You're going to start a new project again?" Andrea was a little surprised. "A political thriller TV series. The two of us will partner again. I can rest assured of your ability." Hearing this, Andrea hesitated. "But director, I still want to leave time to prepare the script." "Don't worry, I'm fast. You can see it. Filming of this drama will start in about a month, and the estimated filming time is about the same as Adele's life, or longer, 2 months at most. Anyway, you'll have plenty of time to prepare this year, and the short film will start shooting next year, and MGM will invest in you." Eric directly offered the temptation of investment. Just a short film. He has money. Sure enough, Andrea succumbed in an instant, and no matter how reserved you are, you will fall under the uncle's money offensive. Then it's decided, I'll give you half a month's vacation first, and then ask me to take the script to participate in the preparation, okay? No problem. I just want to go back to England. It's a deal. The crew was evacuated one after another until Neil Blomkamp came to invite Eric to a party, but he refused. He was also a symbolic invitation. After all, who would want to have a party with the boss? Purely uncomfortable. This kid left happily with a group of people. At this time, only the three sisters Eric and Olsen were left on the huge set. Eric said, "Go and close the door." Mary looked at him with a smile. "What are you doing behind closed doors? You don't want to do bad things here, do you?" "Bad thing? No, I'm going to do something romantic." With that, he turned off the lights in the studio, and the three of them fell into darkness. "Eric, what the hell are you doing?" Ashley asked. At this time, the lights suddenly came on, but instead of fluorescent lights, they were movie lights. Eric adjusted the background slide light, and the lights suddenly turned into a bright starry sky and hit the roof of the shed, as beautiful as being in the universe. "OMG!" the two sisters exclaimed at the same time. Eric fiddled with the effect lights again, and a glorious rain curtain instantly enveloped the audience, except for the feeling of no rain, which was no different from being in a drizzle. "How's it going? Is this scene romantic enough?" Ashley ran over in a few steps, her petite body slamming down on Eric. One of them is almost 190 centimeters tall, and the other is less than 160 centimeters, and Eric catches her with one hand, and then a Latin wrap clamps her around her waist. In the same way, Mary was clamped, and the two sisters slipped on Eric's sides like pendants. "How I feel like a father and a daughter." Eric kissed back and forth between the two. Mary hooked his neck and whispered, "Really? Do you like to be called Daddy?" Eric's heart beat uncontrollably, and Tion nodded shamelessly. "Try it, it's okay." Hearing this, Ashley bit the root of his ear and whispered in her ear, "Daddy, do you want to know what's under my clothes?" On the other side, Mary rubbed her leg against little Eric. "This little pervert is getting bigger and bigger. What is he craving?" I think he needs a wrapping feeling right now." Hee, that's a coincidence. Little Mary needs tightness right now." Spreading out the blanket prepared in advance, the already cool clothes instantly scattered, and the three of them rolled together naked. The bright lights hit them, and the beautiful breath wafted. Stacked arhats, sandwiches, and a moment later the ground was already wet. In the MGM building, Eric sits in a chair and closes his eyes. The body was still young, and if it had been before the crossing, after lunch, Eric would have to walk and get some sleep. If you don't take a nap, you won't be able to stand it at night, and when you are 30 years old, your body will be hollowed out, and you really can't stand it. However, Americans basically do not have the habit of taking a nap, having an hour and a half of lunch and rest at noon, and then continuing to work. Knock, knock. There was a knock on the door, and Chun Xing led Dan Jones in. Instructed not to let people in and disturb him, Eric said, "Sit down." There were only two people left in the office, and the woman opened the black bag she was carrying and pulled out something like lipstick. Seeing this, Eric was a little speechless, thinking to himself, "What are you doing here with makeup? Seducing Lao Tzu?" Although this girl is a bit beautiful, she has been juiced by Ashley and Mary 3 times in the morning, and now she is a little red and swollen, and she is in a Buddhist state. Dan Jones glanced at him. "Boss, I know what you're thinking, but lipstick is just a cover for it. It's actually a bugging." As she spoke, a voice suddenly sounded in the lipstick. Hiss. Eric leans back tactically and stands in awe. You think it's a razor, but it's actually a hairdryer.